Hello everyone, I am Dr. Vanita from Mahindra University. Today I would like to give information about hemichordates, general characteristics, classification of two classes, type study and affinities of Balanoglossus. So hemichordates is formed by two words, hemi means half and chordates which is notochord. This is also called as half chordata, as the name indicates, hemi and chordates. Half chordata. It is lesser known phylum of animal kingdom. These are usually vermiform, that means it is worm like, solitary. They are found in the corners near the seashore, and colonial enterocellular coelomate animals with intraepidermal nervous system and without gill slits and without typical nephridia. And these hemichordates are considered to be close to echinoderms than to true chordates. So we shall deal about the characteristic feature of phylum hemichordates. So when we have a look at the habit and habitat, these creatures are marine animals and are found at different oceans and sea of Atlantic, Pacific and Indian Ocean, and we find these worms are buried under the sand and forming a burrow in the sand or the mud. And when we have a look at the symmetry and body organization, so these are bilateral symmetrical and they are triploblastic, that means they have 3 layers. The body formation are soft, cylindrical, unsegmented bodies, and it is divided into 3 major aspects: proboscis, collar and trunk. The body is having a true coelom, but the true notochord is absent. So the digestive system, this particular phylum is having a complete digestive system. When we have a look at the respiratory system, it takes place through the bronchial openings and several pairs of gill slits. The circulatory system consists of dorsal heart and it is having an open circulatory system. The nervous system consists of a primitive nervous system having intraepidermal nervous plexus. And the speciality of this particular phylum is that there is an indirect development in reproduction and having a tornarial larvae. And this particular phylum Hemichordata is divided into 3 major classes, which is Entropneusta and Pterobranchia, and the third one is Planktosperoidea. So we shall go in detail about Entropneusta. So this particular class is known as acorn worms or tongue worms. So the term acorn is given to the shape of this particular worm, which resembles acorn fruit, and it is called as tongue worm because it resembles the shape of the other part of the body resembles the tongue of an ox. So we shall further deal about Balanoglossus, which is the type study of Entropneusta. So having a look at morphology and the characteristics, it is an ocean dwelling acorn worm and it is characteristically evolutionary link between invertebrates and vertebrates, and it is having a branchial opening or gill slits, as we find gill slits are the characteristic feature of vertebrates. So we find the common characteristics of vertebrates and non-vertebrates. So this is an important type study where it gives an indication about how vertebrates are connected to the non-vertebrates, and it has the notochord in the upper half of the body and has no nerve cord. So as we know, notochord is a characteristic feature of the chordates, and it is having the notochord which is present only in the upper half of the body. So it is called as hemichordates. It comes under hemichordates, that means half chordates. And it is a deuterostome, which is an advanced feature of the chordates. Going further, when we see about the species, there are around 20 species of Balanoglossus, and the classification of Balanoglossus shows it belonging to Entropneusta and Tyroderitae, and we find number of species of Balanoglossus and spread over various shallow waters in different kinds of ocean and sea. And when we have a look at the habitat of Balanoglossus, we find that this particular worm is tuberculous, living in U-shaped burrows excavated in the sandy bottom. So this particular worm survives in a U-shaped burrow, and it maintains that kind of tubular burrow-like structure which is around 10 centimeters at depth. So these burrows are open at both ends, and spiral coils of feces like the castings of earthworms may be seen at the posterior opening. And in its burrow, Balanoglossus lies in its twisted condition, but its anterior and posterior extremities are straight. So this is one of the characteristic habit of Balanoglossus, and as we see the morphology, it is soft, elongated and ciliated all over the body with a mucus, and the length of the animal varies from 2 centimeter to 2.5 meter. As we have seen earlier, the division of the body, we can clearly see proboscis, which is something like a hood shape, and collar is present, and then we find the trunk region. The proboscis has a mouth, and it is having a muscular region because of which it is able to taking the food. When we see the collar lies posterior to the proboscis and anterior to the trunk. It is a short cylinder, usually about as wide as long and mostly shorter than the proboscis. So when we see the trunk region, it is elongated posterior part of the body, and it has a mid-dorsal and mid-ventral longitudinal ridge. It is divided into 3 major areas: anterior branchiogenital region, middle hepatic region, and posterior abdominal region. As you see the digestive system consists of mouth, buccal cavity, pharynx, esophagus, intestine and anus. So the buccal cavity gives rise to rod-like stomatocoid or buccal diverticulum. So we find pharynx having number of gill slits. So the digestive system, there are number of things which are arriving as a current of water is established by the lateral cilia, which lines the gill slits, entering the mouth, which travels through the buccal cavity, then the pharynx and the gill slits, and it follows the branchial sacs and then through the gill ports. The food in pharynx passes through ventral digestive portion, hepatic region, and the cells and the proboscis producing enzymes causing the food digestion. So we find that the food is following and it is digested by number of digestive juices present in the digestive tract, and we find the hepatic region releasing number of digestive juices causing digestion, and the waste material is released through the anus. The circulatory system is simple and open, and it includes a dorsal heart and two longitudinal vessels, one dorsal and one ventral. So the blood vascular system consists of an open type, and it is having a colorless blood and having a central sinus and a heart vesicle. The respiratory system of Balanoglossus consists of two major areas, the branchial portion of pharynx being gill slits and the branchial sacs that open out through the gill ports. One of the characteristic feature of the excretory system is the glomerulus or the proboscis gland, which are present in the front of the central sinus and projecting in the proboscis coelom. So as we see the nervous system, which is a primitive type, and it consists of epidermal plexus or a layer of nervous cells. So these nerve fibers are characteristics of invertebrates. One of the major reproductive larvae found in these worms are the tornaria larvae. So this is characteristic feature of Balanoglossus and also characteristic of hemichordates. So this particular tornaria larva is formed by after the fertilization, and when we happen to look at the affinities of Balanoglossus, this hemichordate's position had been very controversial, and many scientists have compared Balanoglossus and hemichordates with vertebrates as well as invertebrates. So we shall find the affinities towards chordates, where resemblance with reference to chordates is seen based upon the characteristics like notochord, having a central nervous system, and gill clefts, which are characteristic feature of chordates. And when we see the differences with chordates, these chordates have a body and a coelom region corresponding to those of hemichordates, and the coelom is characteristics of invertebrates. So it shows the characteristic feature of invertebrates, and circulatory nervous system is also characteristic feature of invertebrates. So when we have a look at the affinities with respect to annelids, the main resemblance of hemichordates with annelids are the general body form of annelids are segmented and they have a burrowing form like earthworm. So Balanoglossus also resembles the habitat of earthworm, as it is also burrowing and tuberculous form, and it ingests the food or the microorganisms which are present in the mud, and the waste is passed out as the casting, as we find in earthworms. The vascular system of most hemichordates is like of annelids, with blood flowing anterior in the dorsal vessel and posterior in the ventral vessel. So another characteristic feature of it resembling with annelid is that it is having tornaria larva, which is some sort of a modified trochosphere larva present in the polychaete worms. So in this manner we find it resembling with the annelids. When we find its differences with annelids, in annelids we don't have gill slits, and we also find it different from annelids by having a nerve cord. The different kinds of affinities with reference to echinodermata, how it is similar and dissimilar. We find the eye spot is absent in bipinnarea larva, and there is apical plate and tular troch present in the bipinnarea. So in this manner we find striking affinities with echinodermata. So thus we can find hemichordates as an important link between chordates and non-chordates. The digestive system consists of mouth, buccal cavity, pharynx, esophagus, intestine and anus. The buccal cavity gives rise to rod-like stomachoid or buccal diverticulum. The pharynx has number of gill slits. Now, when the current of water is established in the lateral cilia, which lines the gill slits entering into the mouth, and then this travels through buccal cavity and the pharynx, and then through the branchial sacs and finally into the gill ports. So, the digestive system comprises of the food which is entering from the mouth, and then it is passing through the pharynx, through the ventral digestive pores, and then hepatic region is there, which aids in releasing the digestive juices into the food material, and then there is digestion of contents through the digestive juices, and it is passed on, and the undigested food is released through the anus. The digestive food is digested, and it comprises of a primitive kind of a digestive system, and the important aspects in the digestive system are the buccal cavity, pharynx, esophagus, which resemble the chordates, and in addition we also have intestine and the anus. As you see the circulatory system, it is very simple and an open circulatory system, having a dorsal heart and two longitudinal vessels, one dorsal and one ventral. So, the blood is colorless in this particular circulatory system, Balanoglossus. As we have a look at the excretory system, the characteristic feature of Balanoglossus is that the excretory organ is glomerulus or the proboscis gland, which helps in excretion of the contents of the worm. The nervous system comprises of a primitive type, and it has an epidermal plexus or a layer of nerve cells and nerve fibers. When we have a look at the reproductive system, the sexual reproduction zygote develops into a directly or indirectly forming a tornaria larva. So, this is a characteristic feature of Balanoglossus, and it resembles Echinodermata as well as mollusca. So, the position of this particular phylum, Hemichordates, has been a point of controversy between many scientists because of its affinities with different phylums. So, we will be having a look at its affinities with annelids, its affinities with the echinodermites. So, one of the affinity of with respect to annelids is that its general body form is similar to earthworm, having a tuberculous form like structure, and it is burrowing, and it ingests the material or the contents form in the mud as well as microorganisms, and the castings are similar to the earthworm. The vascular system of many hemichordates is like of annelids, with blood flowing anterior in the dorsal vessels and posterior in the ventral vessels. And the tornaria larvae is similar to the trochosphere larva found in the polychaete worms. So, in this manner we find lots of resemblance with annelids. When we find the differences with annelids, the gill slits are absent, and we also find paired nerve cords, which are also characteristic of the annelids. And when we find echinoderms, the similarities, we find lots of similarities in terms that it being deuterostome like an echinodermata, and the larval features being more similar as well as having some sort of dissimilarity with the echinoderms. So hemichordates has been a point of study by many educationalists, as it is a linking phylum, linking vertebrates and non-vertebrates, and as the name indicates, there is vertebra present, there is notochord present, but the notochord is half present, so it is called as hemichordates or half vertebrates or half chordates. So as soon as hemichordates phylum is heard, it is always a connecting link between vertebrates and invertebrates. And the characteristic feature is acorn worms or tongue worm, which is a Balanoglossus. And another important feature is they are found almost in all the sandy shores of sea and oceans. So this is one of the remarkable feature how we find hemichordates important in the classification of animal kingdom. Following the characteristic of hemichordates, the habit and habitat includes the marine animals and which live in burrows in sand or mud, and they also live in algae or beneath the shores. When we see the symmetry, it is bilateral symmetrical and triploblastic, and they are deuterostomes. So when we find deuterostome, the characteristic feature of echinoderms where the first opening is the anus. As we find in the primitive organisms, the first embryonic opening is the mouth. But in higher organisms, we find as echinoderms and vertebrates, we find deuterostomic characteristic, which is the first embryonic opening is the anus and the second embryonic opening is the mouth. The body formation has soft, cylindrical and unsegmented bodies, which is divided into three major parts: proboscis, collar and trunk. So this is a characteristic feature of Balanoglossus, as it is having a hood-like proboscis and having a collar-like region. So the hood-like proboscis is meant to burrow in the sand, and it is having a mucus lining through which, as it burrows in the sand, it is able to find that particular burrow, and because of its slimy nature in the body wall, it is able to find a U-shaped burrow in the sand. And this particular animal is very sluggish and it prefers to stay in that particular burrow. And we find two different kinds of openings present, and that particular opening which is present on the wall of that particular burrow is funnel shape. And we also find another opening which this particular Balanoglossus uses when it is under any kind of a threat. In addition, we also find some kind of castings, as we find in earthworm, where another side of the burrow is meant for the fecal castings, where this particular animals releases, and it prefers to stay in this particular burrow, which is a U shape in the sand. So this is one of the characteristic feature of Balanoglossus, and it is having a complete digestive system. This respiration is having a branchial openings or gill slits, which is an advanced feature as we find in the chordates. The circulatory system is an open circulatory system having a dorsal heart. The excretory system has the proboscis gland, and the nervous system has a very primitive consisting of intraepidermal nervous plexus. And reproduction, the characteristic feature of reproduction is that the larvae is Tornaria larvae. So many times it is one of the important points of feature in Balanoglossus, and this particular larvae is resembling the larvae of different phylums. And as we see the classes of hemichordates, we find three major classes, which are Entropneusta, which are the acorn worms or tongue worm. So as we have discussed earlier also, acorn means it resembles the fruit acorn of an oak tree, and the shape of proboscis resembles the acorn fruit, so it is called as acorn worm. In addition, when we see the trunk region, it is having some kind of a flap that resembles the tongue of an ox, so it is also called as tongue worm, or Balanoglossus acorn, and glossus means tongue worm. So when we find another class which is Pterobranchia, so this particular class, the animals of Pterobranchia live in colonies, whereas when we see Enteropneusta, these animals are free living and they are characteristic found in the sea and ocean. And Pterobranchia, these animals form colonies and individuals are connected by stems or stolons. And examples of Pterobranchia are Rhabdopleura, Cephalodiscus or Tubularia. So these animals are in the form of colonies and they stay connected by stems or stolons. The last class of Hemichordata is Planktosferoidea. This class of Hemichordata represents few small, rounded, transparent pelagic larvae, and this particular class represents the different larvae found, and example of this particular class is the Planktosferoidea pelagica. So we find different classes of Hemichordata, variation the different classes of Hemichordata being free living, colonial, and the other class being the larvae form. So when we have a look at Enteropneusta, it is a free living burrowing animal and it's vermiform with no stalk. It's like the worm is coiled and it is having some of the important characteristics like Pisces, which is the gill slits, and it is having two pairs of hepatic ceca present in the middle of the trunk, and this ceca helps in digestion, as the ceca is, there are two pairs of hepatic ceca which helps in digestion, but when there are number of digestive juices released from this particular area, this resembles the liver organ present in the vertebrates. And when we see, in addition to Balanoglossus, we also have Sacoglossus, Protoglossus and Tychodera. These are some other genus present in Enteropneusta. So this is one of the connecting link between chordates and non-chordates, and one of the important phylums of the animal kingdom, and it becomes very crucial when the notochord is the point of study, and in addition to notochord we find some more characteristics of vertebrates, and we also find the characteristics of invertebrates like the nerve cord. So it is also an important type study of many educationalists, being the worm living in the burrows, and this particular worm has been important zoologically because of its evolutionary link. So by this I would like to give an importance of this particular phylum and the species of Balanoglossus having characteristics of the characteristic study when we have a wide range of phylum starting from invertebrates, and when we have a look at invertebrates, Coelenterata, and we find annelids, echinoderms and mollusca, followed by the vertebrate phylums like aves, then amphibia. This particular phylum is always an linking between invertebrates and vertebrates and having some sort of resemblance with echinoderms, resemblance with annelids, resemblance with mollusca in terms of larvae, in terms of some characteristic feature of the nervous system, as well as having equally resembling feature and dissimilarities between Pisces, dissimilarities between some other phylums of the vertebrates. So by this I feel this is one of the important phylums of study. So by this I would like to conclude hemichordates and the type study of Balanoglossus. Thank you one and all.